The Northeast Ohio Regional Fusion Center and law enforcement agencies from across Cuyahoga, Lake, Geauga, Ashtabula, and Lorain counties have launched iWatch, a free and anonymous way to directly report suspicious activity, tips, and leads. It's a free app you can get right on your smartphone. This app is not a replacement for calling 911 in an emergency, but this app is a crime-fighting tool. Go to iWatchNEOhio.com to find out more information on how to download this free app. A tip you give could very well save a life.
Well, good morning. Good morning. As you know, United has announced that they will be reducing service at Cleveland Hopkins International Airport, and that Cleveland will no longer be a hub in their system. Late last week, I was notified of these cuts. We spent Friday and Saturday and Sunday kind of compiling information so that we can have a very informed press conference. I instructed my staff to immediately begin to review our options, the potential impact, and what next steps we should be taking. First, I want to say that I am disappointed with United's decision. The City of Cleveland, Airport Director Ricky Smith, and the Greater Cleveland Partnership have worked tirelessly over the last 8 years to encourage the growth of First Continental and then what became United Airlines. In 2010, I formed the Greater Cleveland Partnership CLE Air Service Task Force, whose mission was to support efforts to grow United at Cleveland. The campaign called United for the Hub campaign was a result of the work done by that committee and that task force, and I'd like to thank them for the hard work and amount of hours they put in. They put in many hours attempting to come up with solutions that would meet the agreement we had with through the Attorney General on filling the seats of United and supporting the hub. I also want to thank all of Greater Clevelanders for their support in this effort. As you know, many people paid extra money to fly United, and they did that as a part of their commitment to our attempting to support the hub. My policy and instructions have been and will continue to be to make Hopkins International Airport competitive regardless of what happens in the airline industry or what happens to our hub. Our policies, decisions, and investments at the airports have been with that concept in mind. Because of these efforts and others, Cleveland Hopkins International Airport, even with the loss of United Hub, is in a stronger position to grow today than it was 8 years ago. Because of strategic investments we made, Cleveland Hopkins is a airport that is a customer-focused airport, and it is more and better attractive to facility for airlines. Since June of 2006, we built on the expansion of the airport that took place in late 1990 under Mayor White. I hired Director Smith to lead the airport system in a way that would position Cleveland Hopkins Airport as a driver of our local economy and a key transportation connection for our national and global economy. And we began investing in ways that would make Hopkins competitive and successful despite, again, actions of any particular airline or the ups and downs in the global marketplace, whether it's the economy or the marketplace where airlines function. Key improvements include those made to concessions, renovations at our terminal, improvement in our runway, airfields, and safety features, and a new control tower is now under construction. In addition, The stability of leadership at the airport has improved operations, again making Hopkins more competitive. Today we have an airport that consistently receives high marks from travelers, and is known as an on-time airport. For these reasons and others, the loss of the United hub, while significant, is not the end of Cleveland Hopkins International Airport. In fact, it presents us with new opportunities for growth. When you have a hub, other airlines consider that fact when they make decisions as to how they will grow their business at the airport, sometimes not wanting to be in direct competition with a hub. And as Director Smith will point out, when you have a hub, you have to direct your resources and your operation around maintaining and supporting that hub. We are now free to redirect resources and operations in a way that will support growth of other airlines and opportunities that they may see. Now, Cleveland Hopkins International Airport can make efficiently market itself and work on building on the success we have had with other airlines in recent years. Again, Director Smith will talk to you about the interest of other airlines to invest in capacity at Hopkins. Director Smith will speak in a moment to the future, to further explain our investments and our strategy for attracting new services with more detail. As we move forward with this strategy, we will work hard to meet the needs of travelers, whether leisure or business. We believe we will see growth in other airline services in Cleveland, and we believe that Hopkins will continue to be an economic engine for Cleveland and this region. Now I want Director Smith to come forward. He will give you some details about what I've talked about and give you some context about the statistics and the data and the facts that have been released by United. Director.
Thank you, Mayor. Good morning.
Good morning.
This room is a little crowded, isn't it, man? First of all, I want to reiterate Mayor Jackson's point about the disappointment. We are obviously the city, the airport system's employees. We reflect the same disappointment that many of our stakeholders have expressed over the weekend. And so, yes, we are disappointed. We're not done, but we're disappointed. What I'm going to try to do is to reiterate to you, not justify, but reiterate to you what was reported to us from United in terms of their service changes. So as a recap, first, they reported to us and they reported to their employees on Sunday that they will reduce their daily departures, their average daily departures, by 64%. That's a reduction from 200 average daily departures to about 72. Now, within that reduction, they will retain almost all of their mainline departures. 25 of 26 of their mainline departures they will retain. The one that we're going to lose is their mainline service to Phoenix, which we think is a very attractive market, and we expect that market to be picked up pretty quickly. The largest reduction in their departures is with their regional jet operations. There will be a 73% reduction in departures, reducing regional jet operations from 174 to 47. And you're going to begin to see a theme. The theme here is that the reductions are associated with their connecting traffic, their regional jet operations. This is not a reduction associated with local demand. This is a reduction associated with pass-through traffic, mostly individuals that would never see outside the airport. Another aspect of their announcement was a 66% reduction in non-stop markets served out of Cleveland. This is a reduction from 59 markets to 20 markets. And I'm going to briefly run through those markets that will be affected. The 20 markets include Albany, Boston, Baltimore, Washington, Chicago, O'Hare. The markets that will be retained. The 20 markets that will be retained are Albany, Boston, Baltimore, Washington, Chicago, O'Hare, Dallas, Fort Worth, Denver, Fort Lauderdale, Fort Myers, Las Vegas, Los Angeles, Houston Bush, Milwaukee, New York LaGuardia, Newark, Orlando, St. Louis, San Francisco, Tampa, Washington Dulles, and Washington Reagan. These are all substantial markets that are primarily supported by local demand. Their announcement also included a notification to their employees that they will reduce their workforce by 470 positions. That will be effective by June of this year. And those 430 positions includes 430 operations positions. They refer to them as above the wing and below the wing. Those operations positions include both their ramp staff, ticket agent staff, customer service staff. These are all employees who are necessary to support operations at the airport. Above the wing and below the wing. There will be 40 positions related to their catering operations that will also be subject to these reductions. The reductions will occur over, although they report over three stages equally. I'm going to present to you in a second how those reductions will occur. It is not equal. It's not equal for each period, but they will occur over a 3-month period. And so those markets that will be eliminated by month, as they've been reported to us so far. In April, they will eliminate 9 markets. Those markets will include Hartford, Burlington, Manchester, Madison, Wisconsin, Oklahoma City, Philadelphia, Providence, Raleigh-Durham, and Montreal. And then in May will see the lightest reductions. There will be 4 reductions, including Nashville, Charlotte, Minneapolis, and Louisville. June will wrap up the reductions, and there we will see the most substantial level of reductions. There will be 23. Atlanta, Austin, Bradford, Pennsylvania, Buffalo, Columbus, Dayton, Du Bois, Pennsylvania, Erie, Pennsylvania, Franklin, Pennsylvania, Flint, Grand Rapids, Greenville, Spartanburg, Indianapolis, Jamestown, New York, Kansas City, Harrisburg, Phoenix, Pittsburgh, Parkersburg, Richmond, Rochester, Syracuse, Toronto. There are Bradford, Pennsylvania, Du Bois, Pennsylvania, Franklin, Pennsylvania, Jamestown, New York, and Parkersburg are all services supported by the Federal Essential Air Service Program, and those eliminations are subject to Department of Transportation's approval. Now, and we can provide this list to you as well. If you were to look at these markets and rank them by demand, by passenger support, then what you'll find is that the markets that are being eliminated are all at the bottom of the list of markets that United supported at the airport. So these are markets that are that were least used by local demand. The last of their announcement is that they expect to continue use of their Cleveland maintenance facility, which for years has been one of their most efficient maintenance facilities in their system. They will keep the pilot and flight attendant bases. So that sounds pretty daunting. Those are significant cuts from a departure standpoint, significant exits in terms of markets. They are eliminating connecting service, is what I said earlier. That's basically what they're doing, is eliminating connecting service. These are passengers that never step outside the airport, and they are retaining mainline service. These are passengers like you who begin and end their flights in Cleveland. And when we look at the impact of these reductions on the total passenger base in Cleveland, it amounts to 8%. 8%. Not 64%, not 66%, but 8% of the passenger base will be affected. We would lose 8% if they didn't close the hub. We've probably lost 8% over the last 8 years. Okay? So although these cuts are substantial from a market exit standpoint and a departure standpoint, from a pure passenger standpoint, we're talking about 8.3%. Now, we wouldn't want to lose any service because all of those markets are important to somebody. But to put some context to the announcement, they're going to affect 8.3% of our passenger base. Okay. 7 of the cities that they're exiting are cities that are also covered by other carriers at CLE already. According to United, this announcement was accelerated by a new federal regulation that restricts regional jet operators' ability to hire pilots. And so it was becoming, according to United, it was becoming progressively difficult for them, for their regional carriers, to hire pilots to meet their schedules. Now, these reductions are resulting, and the resulting pull down of Cleveland Hub are painful, as I stated earlier. But they're painful and they're also permanent. The idea of a Cleveland Hub is behind us. The idea of any market the size of Cleveland, a mid-sized market, although a very healthy market, but the size of this market anywhere in the country, will not experience a hub. The state of the industry, the airline industry, is focused primarily on international travel, and hubs are pretty much used as a launching point for international travel. And so you will find hubs in large markets like Chicago, Atlanta, San Francisco, Los Angeles, Dallas, much larger markets, New York, much larger markets than Cleveland. Cleveland is not the first mid-sized market to lose a hub. Okay, we're one of the last 2 mid-sized markets to have a hub. So, we will bounce back. We'll be fine. We're going to get through this because we're a very, very strong market. We have a very strong airport, and we have a very, very positive outlook in terms of our ability to attract other carriers. So I want to speak a little bit to what have we done. The mayor talked about his mission to position CLE to be strong regardless of what happens in the industry. He is absolutely right. That has been his mantra, his message to me for the last 8 years, and we've worked feverishly to that end. For starters, let me again reiterate some context. United's announcement is not a statement, it's not an indictment on Cleveland's market for air service. It is not an indictment on this economy's ability to support air service. This is a statement about the hub's inability to price connecting traffic in a way that made money for them. This was a business decision for United Airlines, not an indictment on Cleveland's economy. We continue to be a very strong market with very strong local demand. And this is evidenced by the fact that the service that United is retaining is all mainline service that's supported by local demand. They're not pulling that service. They're pulling, again, connecting service. These are people that you would never see. Now, hubs are very costly operations by nature. All hubs are very costly. The infrastructure that you have to have in place to support a hub makes it very expensive. You know, the whole concept of a hub is like building a church for Easter Sunday. You build a lot of capacity that you don't use most of the time because hubs operate in peaks. So our hub and all the work that we've done to support this hub has caused us to have an infrastructure that is costly. It is also very costly for the airlines to operate, the assets that they have to commit. So the hub was a very costly structure. On top of that, our hub was a regional jet hub. It was primarily a regional jet hub. Regional jets are very expensive aircraft to operate. There's not enough capacity to spread the costs and generate the revenues necessary to make those flights profitable. Okay? 10 years ago, regional jets were the wave of the future. The thinking was that the skies were going to be littered with these regional jets until the industry began to learn that they were very costly to operate, and they began to back away from that. So we were both a very cost-driven hub structure with regional jets that are very costly. We had both. Unlike most hubs, we had both of those to deal with. Now, that burden this region has carried for many years, and this is an opportunity going forward to begin to operate in a new approach to life without the burdens of a hub, and to begin to grow air service for this region as we know we can. And that's exactly what the mayor's mission to us has been designed to do, is to position us to take advantage of this time and this day. So today, with the support of our partners at City Council, I see Council President Kelly here, I believe Councilman Kane is here as well, and several others of our council partners here. I feel very confident to say that we're in a strong position, and I know that we've taken a lot of very tough efforts over the years to get to this point. And we've made great strides. Great strides to maintain this airport in a strong position. And those strides were all centered around four basic areas. One, operational efficiency with respect to our airfield. That is critical to the operations of not just a hub, but any airport, their ability to get in and out. And I'll touch on that a little bit more in a minute. But operational efficiency and safety is key. Customer service, making sure that our customers have the best experience that we can provide them. Airport costs, our efforts to manage airport costs, and a focused effort with respect to air service development. As it pertains to operational efficiency on our airfield, we enjoy an airfield that supports one of the most efficient operations in the industry. We have an 84% on-time performance record at our airport. That is one of the best in the industry. And what that means to the carriers is that to the extent that they can get their flights in and out quickly, they're not wasting a lot of money on fuel costs because they are taxiing on the runways. They're not experiencing customer dissatisfaction because flights are delayed or flights are canceled. And so our airfield and the efficiency that comes with our airfield allows the airlines to operate at a much more cost-effective manner. That is a benefit. That is a plus. That is part of the strength that the mayor alluded to that positions us to be attractive to anyone else who wants to provide service out of this market. And that didn't happen by accident. This community spent over $1 billion over the last 15 or so years preparing this kind of infrastructure, building a new runway, runway 6 left, 24 right, to add additional capacity. So a lot of thought went into developing this kind of infrastructure so that we would be prepared for this kind of day. As a result, again, our airlines are able to operate more reliably, and they can operate at lower cost. We've also introduced award-winning customer service amenities. Our food and beverage program from day one has been an award-winning program serving as a model for other airport retail programs across the country. Our airport taxi program is second to none. We have free Wi-Fi for all of our airport passengers. The commitment that it requires to offer that kind of service free is enormous. Parking services. We're in the middle of a parking redevelopment program that, when done, will be a model parking program for other airports throughout the industry. Now, why is this important? This is important to our carriers because to the extent that their customers are satisfied, they will be return customers. And so the airport's role is to provide amenities to help airlines meet the needs and provide the kind of service that their customers enjoy. And we've made great progress to that end. As a matter of fact, our customer service ratings continue to go up with Airport Council International airport service quality scores. Rising cost is something that all airports experience. we all experience rising costs. That's not unique to Cleveland Hopkins. We too had to manage rising costs, but we've done it very, very effectively. We've put in place cost control strategies, and we've embarked on a focus to introduce new revenues to this airport system that are not the result of airline operations. So part of that strategy of positioning ourselves to be stronger involved positioning ourselves to be less dependent on the revenues we get from airlines. So the landing fees we get from airlines, the space rental that we get from airlines, to the extent that we are less dependent on those revenues, we are a much stronger airport. And we've accomplished that. Since 2011, as a percentage of total revenues, has gone from 57% to 49%. And we have more plans that we are pushing out that will increase that percentage over the next couple of years. And so from that vantage point, we're in a very strong position. The fundamentals of the airport are very strong. For example, our cash balance. We have a cash balance that allows us to operate for 780 days without new revenues coming in. That is one of the strongest cash positions of any airport in the industry. And what does that mean to our carriers? What that means is whenever we go out for credit or bond issuances to support capital projects, we're able to get that credit for those bonds at a lower rate because of our balance sheet. That is all the result of an intentional, deliberate effort to manage our cash so that we will be in a strong position when something happens like the weekend. Our cost per enplanement, that's a metric that airports are measured by across the country. Our cost per enplanement, which is the airport cost per each enplanement. An enplanement is an individual getting on an airplane, a passenger getting on an airplane. So for every passenger that gets on an airplane at CLE, the cost associated with that passenger is about $13.92. That is the second best cost per enplanement of United hubs that we compare ourselves to. If you look at Chicago, today their cost per enplanement is $13.55. Newark's cost per enplanement is $28.30. Dulles' cost per enplanement is $26.24. Chicago is about to do something we did 20 years ago. They're about to build a new runway. Okay? When that new runway, when that bill comes in, their cost per enplanement will go from $13.55 to almost $25. Okay? We have about $600 million of debt on our books. Our debt will be paid down. We will be debt-free in 15 years. That is because we've had a deliberate, strategic effort to refinance our debt and to pay down our debt at the most accelerated rate possible. Again, all of this positions the airport to be strong regardless of what happens in the industry, and that's what the mayor's been pushing for. So what else have we done? 8 years ago, when Mayor Jackson took over and he sent me to the airport, CLE did not have a marketing and air service development program. There was not an individual going out, meeting with carriers to encourage them to consider Cleveland for air service. As a matter of fact, I remember when Todd Payne, who was the chief of marketing air service development, went out on his first air service development trip. People were surprised that Cleveland was even interested in new air service because Cleveland was not pitching air service. Since 2008, we've had a very aggressive, focused air service development program. That program included pitching to both domestic and international carriers to come to Cleveland and meet our local demand effort. And several of those prospects expressed interest in coming to Cleveland, depending on United's decision. So what has Todd done? What has his team done over the last 8 years? Well, they've met with over 58 airline prospects, 58. And many of those they meet with on an annual basis, face-to-face. And as I said, several of those have expressed interest in providing service out of Cleveland, but for United's presence. Now, it's very difficult for an airline to penetrate a market that is operated by a hub. Because what typically happens is an airline comes in, let's say, and introduces service to Phoenix, okay? The hub carrier drops the fares to make it almost difficult for the new carrier to make any money. That drives that carrier out, and then the hub carrier raises the fares back up, okay? That's typically what happens whenever a new entrant tries to enter a market that is dominated by a hub. And that has made it extremely difficult for us to convince new carriers to come in. We've had some success, but not the success that we can have with the removal of the hub. It's ironic that the day United reported to us that they were going to draw down the hub, we got a message from one of our tenant carriers that they were going to convert almost all of their regional jets to mainline aircraft. They weren't doing it because they had excess aircraft they wanted to just put somewhere. They said that they were doing it because of the local demand, in response to local demand for air service. Now, in response to the United Continental merger back in 2010, you may recall, Mayor Jackson convened the Greater Cleveland Partnership, myself, some other CEOs in the region, to look at opportunities to improve the hub's position, to develop strategies, to develop approaches to addressing whatever issues United needed to have addressed to improve their position. An outgrowth of this group that the mayor convened was at least 2 meetings of CEOs, and we're talking about the CEOs of the major corporations in Northeast Ohio. On 2 different occasions, there were at least 20 to 30 CEOs meeting face-to-face with Jeff Smythe to talk about strategies for supporting the hub. Subsequent to that, the Greater Cleveland Partnership, as you are well aware, launched the United for the Hub campaign. This was a very aggressive campaign to both educate the public on the importance of the hub and to encourage the public to use the hub, despite the fact that hub fares were higher than some of their alternatives. And this community made the commitment, several corporations made policies in their organizations requiring their employees to buy tickets from the hub, even if there was an alternative at a lower price within a particular threshold. Mayor Jackson, I know because I was with him, met with both Larry Kelly, the former CEO of United, and Jeff Smythe on more than one occasion, both hosting meetings here, as well as hosting meetings in Chicago and Houston, when Continental was in Chicago, for the very purpose of talking about ways that we can improve the hub's position and to grow the hub. And Jeff Smythe himself touts our efforts as a model that other markets should aspire to. He said that publicly, and I think he would say that privately. The latest indication of this community's support for United was this community's rally around the publication that United calls Hemisphere Magazine. It's their in-flight publication, which includes an insert where occasionally they will profile a local community, preferably their hubs. It's called Dossier. This community, through its advertising efforts and other efforts, resulted in the largest and most successful dossier publication in the history of Hemisphere Magazine. Again, that is indicative of the support of this community for the hub and the support of this community for outreach, for air service in this community, and it's indicative of the kind of effort that came out of the mayor's air service, the group that the mayor formed through the air service task force. So, all of that being said, we talked about what United has announced, and we talked about what we've done. Question is, where do we go from here? Because I'm sure that's the most important question on many of your minds. Where do we go from here? Well, before I do that, let me make a couple. After United's reductions, this community will still enjoy service to 35 markets served by 6 airlines. Okay? We're still a healthy airport. We still have a healthy air service program, and we still have access to many markets that are of interest to this community. As I alluded to earlier, we have carriers that have already begun the process of introducing mainline service as opposed to regional jet service. And we know that's been the complaint of many of our flyers. The idea of loading themselves on regional jet aircraft has not been the most customer-friendly approach to providing service to this community. And we're beginning to see a turn in that as we speak. United's announcement will also allow there to be greater competition. Greater competition drives customer service, improvements in customer service. It also drives airfares. If you look at the experience of some other hubs, or in some other, where other hubs have been eliminated, or in those cases where there's been more competition amongst carriers, you've seen a reduction in fares. Airfares in this community over the last 2 to 3 years have spiked enormously. We should begin to see some relaxation of those airfare hikes, and that will be certainly a plus to this community. So, in terms of what will we do from here, the first step we have to take is we have to change our approach to life. We can no longer live a hub approach to life. We have to live a local approach to life. And so how the airport structures its resources to offer air service and other amenities to the community. We have to do that with the local community's interests in mind, not spend resources to support passengers that will never step outside the airport, connecting passengers. And so that's a philosophical change that we're going to have to make, and our management team has to figure out how we reposition our resources to do that. We will also work with our existing tenants, airline tenants, to talk about immediate expansion. So we have tenants that can expand service on almost an immediate basis. And so that's the most low-hanging fruit, is to begin to work with our existing tenants about expanding service. We will also further our discussions with those carriers that I alluded to earlier, those prospects that have expressed interest in providing service here at Cleveland, but for United's existence. We will begin to accelerate those discussions so that they can begin to introduce service to this market. And working with the Greater Cleveland Partnership, we will develop a robust and comprehensive strategy for introducing more service, both domestic and international service to this market, again, based on this new approach to life. Service that meets local demand and not service that's necessarily important to a hub. This effort, if it's indicative of what this community has done in the past to rally around this situation, will be second to none. And I'm very confident that we will pull together an air service development strategy that will return service to this community and meet all the traveling demands of most of our traveling public. Again, we will not have a hub, but we will have service to meet the traveling demands of most of our passengers. And we're talking about nonstop service. Okay. And the last point in terms of how we move forward is we have to continue our efforts to develop strategies to introduce new revenue sources to the airport. And why is that important? The way airlines pay landing fees or space rentals at the airport is based on a formula that, to the extent that we are able to introduce new revenues to the airport that are not coming from the airlines, then we can lower their operating costs. And so this big push over the last 8 years to bring on new revenues has all been centered around reducing airline operating costs. And we will identify new strategies to make that happen. And so, again, as the airport director for Cleveland Hopkins, yes, I am disappointed I remember when the previous airport went through the loss of a hub. I remember when BWI lost PNAP. And it was a daunting time, but it recovered. And Cleveland will do the same thing because our airport is positioned much stronger than BWI was positioned at that time. And we have a community that supports air service. We have a demand for air service like no other airport in this area. And so we will be okay. I'm confident we'll be okay. That being said, I would like to go back up to the podium.
All right, over the coming weeks and months, we will implement the strategies that the director has outlined to you. There are some details that we have to work out in that strategy is who we talk to when we talk to them, particularly the airlines, and how do we redirect resources to change from a hub mentality into a local, supportive local demand mentality. As he mentioned, the hub mentality really spends a lot of money on people moving through, not necessarily on those who originate from here or Cleveland is the destination. I and the director will meet in the near future with the Greater Cleveland Partnership CLE Air Service Task Force, and I and the director would ask them to refocus their efforts on existing airlines and attracting new airlines with the goal of growing service and opportunities at Hopkins and for the purpose of filling the void created by United's decision. I will be asking Attorney General DeWine to conduct an audit related to United's decision to cut services in Cleveland. As you know, this audit was one of the terms outlined in the agreement that United signed along with then Attorney General Cordray at the time of Continental and United's merger in 2010. And the audit, I guess there's a provision that there's certain things that can be done if revenue failed to a certain point and certain obligations that had to be met if revenues did not fall. So we'll be reviewing that so we can determine if we have some rights and to protect in that regard. And finally, we will be working with the state and the county on their looking at those people who have been displaced as a result of United's decision. Again, I want to reiterate some important points. United's decision to cut service to Cleveland is significant, but at the same time, we will prepare for the possibility and have strategic plans in place to address what we need to address to ensure the viability of this airport and the competitiveness of this region's economy. In fact, United's decisions has opened up opportunities for us to grow and make Hopkins a more competitive and attractive place for other airlines to decide to come to. We will continue our efforts to strengthen the airport system and leverage Hopkins as an asset for this region's economy and for the businesses and people who live, work, and play here. So we'll open it up for any questions.
Mayor, it seemed at the time when we talked about the ongoing dialogue since the merger, did it catch a flat-footed? How surprised were you?
Well, we were, surprised, not surprised, it was more like disappointment because we knew that in the effort with the task force, and there was always the conversation about the loss of revenue. We may not have necessarily agreed with their assessment of how much and all of that. So, but we always knew that there was a possibility. You have to remember that the airline industry is a very, very competitive industry, very competitive. And that they have a very capitalistic approach to life, and they're very competitive. And so we always knew that one hiccup somewhere, a merger with some other airlines, would cause some things to happen. If you listen to United's explanation, it was a hiccup somewhere, particularly in regulations, as they pointed out. And that, to them, they said, accelerated a decision that they may have made, may not have made. So that is why we always prepared for the loss of a hub. We always prepared for the loss of this hub in this particular airline and others. And we made strategic investments and we made some backup plans to address it. So surprised, no. Disappointed, yes. And again, it's a very competitive industry. Just the cost of fuel going up a few dollars causes them to just go completely out of whack. Another airline merging with another airline really positions them and make them want to do things that they currently do not do. So we wanted to be nimble enough and fluid enough to adjust. That's why the director under my instruction has been planning for possibilities all the time. If that answers your question.
You talked about asking for an audit, and then you just talked here about concerns about the actual amount of revenue lost. How concerned are you that United may have violated the agreement they signed with
Well,
AG?
I'm not, I don't know. I mean, I'm doing it as a proven thing to do. You know, if I had lawyers, they would tell me, hey, you should check this out. We have an agreement. I think we're in the 4th year of a 5-year agreement. So it would just behoove us to look into that to see, are there some things in there that could protect our interests? There may be, there may not be. So I'm not looking at it as being concerned about they lied or they did something wrong. It's just what I believe would be approved.
Did they give you a number for how much they've lost?
I do not know. The director would probably be a better answer to that question. But if I'm not mistaken, in their statement, they said they lost over a 10-year period, they lost millions of dollars. You know, I guess it's how you calculate that.
We'll provide you the letter from Jeff Smizek. James?
And others have found themselves to be profitable. So, yes, sir.
I know it's 400 jobs from them.
Right.
Have y'all had a chance to sit down and realize the economic impact for Cleveland as far as employees that work for Hopkins or the ramp people or wheelchair people? Have you sat down and figure out possibly how many more jobs the domino effect will have?
No, we have not done that yet.
Right.
So that's one of the things. And I know there's several things we look at. We look at what is that economic impact. And if you look at a region that has hundreds of thousands of jobs, I guess 500 this way or that way is not going to make or break us as a city or as a region. But what it will do is make or break an individual span.
Right.
And so that's what we're concerned about. And as the director does the analysis that you mentioned, we will be working with the state and the county in their efforts to place people in jobs that currently exist that they have qualifications for, things like that. And may even do some retraining.
Hi, Mayor. I think Ricky talked about this a little bit, but I didn't hear it clearly. There's some flight attendants in the room. How are flight attendants regionally affected as far as jobs?
Now, directors are better to answer. I will say that, I guess if you're in the mainstream, you're not as impacted. But if you're going to cut that level of service in when a plane comes in, and then when it lands, there's certain things done to it, you know, changing baggage, all these other kind of things, and when it takes off, where the attendants fit in that, I don't know, maybe correct.
I will offer this, it may not satisfy the question. The decision was a United decision affecting United employees. The information that we're getting in terms of the details of this decision is still evolving. We continue to get new information every day. What they've reported is that it will affect their employees above the line, above the wing and below the wing.
And what does that mean?
That means that it will affect almost every category of employees at Cleveland Hopkins International Airport.
And my second question was what kind of was asked here, but as far as Concourse D, with the airport workers, you've got cleaners, janitorial, food, stores, restaurants, concessions. What about those jobs?
Now that I can speak to. This decision is something that was brought to our attention not very long ago. The idea of determining the exact impact on, for example, our concessions program on Concourse D, and I can't give you a sufficient response to that. What I can tell you is that, yes, there will be an impact. Most of the services that are being reduced are services that were from Concourse D. So is it likely that concourse and operations related to that concourse, like our concessions program, and maybe employees that were dedicated to that concourse, be affected? The answer is yes. The magnitude, I don't know the answer to that yet. We have a lot of work to do to understand it. Concourse D is, the mayor's question is what if another airline came in Concourse D? Concourse D, when it was designed and developed, it was developed for regional jet operations. So it would require some redesign, some reconstruction to accommodate mainline aircraft. That's part of the analysis that we would have to go through. We have capacity in the terminal today to accommodate new service in the main terminal itself. So again, answers around the future of Concourse D, I want to be responsible and not mislead you. We will get the answer to that, but today I can't give you a definite answer on what will happen in Concourse D.
So have any of the airlines that you said expressed interest in increasing their service, but they didn't because United had a hub here, is there a possibility that they could bring a hub?
My honest answer, and I hope I'm proven wrong one day, my honest answer is the idea of there being a new hub in Cleveland is unlikely. The idea of a new hub anywhere in the United States is unlikely. Airlines are not developing new hubs. That's just the nature of the industry. Will we have sufficient service to meet the demands of our local market? Yes, we will have very good air service to get our customers wherever they need to get on a non-stop basis. But a hub is not part of the future.
Kevin?
Director, did United say anything about the jobs that are going to be lost, helping people maybe relocate, get other United jobs around the country, anything like that?
What United has said to us is that they're going to work with the city, the county, and the state to develop strategies for helping those employees that have lost their jobs. They have not been as specific as relocating employees. I imagine that all strategies are on the table. Yeah, that's a better question to be asked of United.
Layla?
Yes, Concourse D, it was built at the request of Confidential years ago, and the city had to borrow to pay for it. How much is still owed on that debt, and how will the city cover that debt now?
This decision does not affect the airport or the airlines, including United's obligation to pay whatever debt is associated with them. Concourse D, however, is part of a special facilities lease that is specific to United. That lease expires in 2027, and so United Airlines is obligated to cover the debt associated with that, with Concourse D. Now, if I could add something to that, just to give you more context. Most of United's gates, 85% of United Airlines gates are subject to a special facilities lease that expires in 2027. So they should have a significant level of service here, at least until 2027. They will certainly have obligations, both in terms of debt and rent, associated with those gates through 2027. They only have 6 gates here that are subject to our master use and lease agreement. And so we're well protected with respect to United's obligations to pay whatever debt the city has taken on with the airport. And their commitment to paying. They've communicated to us that they have no plans of trying to remove themselves from those obligations.
Mayor, back in 1986, I believe, we had 30% United in terms of throwing people down to adults, I believe. It was a long climb out to get back to where we were. Obviously, we can't get the time frame, but what do you see next?
Well, I wasn't even thinking about this kind of stuff in '86, but you know, I got elected in '89, and then it became part of what I thought, right?
I'm old, I'm sorry.
But the point is that we do recognize history, and that's what I talked about, the vitality, the turmoil that happens in the airline industry. It's just a volatile place, and anything can happen at any given time. And we know, and Director Smith has come from Baltimore where it's happened, and he has a history of other things. And so what we've done, that's why my instructions to him was to be ready, and our goal is to, whatever the negative side of this is to have it last a very short period of time and recover and make it positive out of it. To us, we want to turn this into an opportunity. The only way we could do that is to be prepared. And so you're right, we recognize the history of that particular instance, but just the history of the airline industry in general that gave us in our minds, the direction that, look, we have to be prepared for anything. And primarily, we knew that the loss of a hub, it would be the most significant thing. So that's why we actually prepared that if that happened, what would we do and how could we be better positioned to recover from it in the shortest period of time. I cannot give you a time period, but what we're saying is that we will do it much faster than we would have done if we would not have done it.